So in this episode, I would like to tell you how we can use public API and request in user utility widget. So I'll combine these two topics in order to make it more condensed and precise on the matter. So this is the actor assets. We use the validators as well. I will use another folder. This folder will be editor utility widget. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I will use editor utilities and editor utility widget. Basically we can just create a select, it will create a default, we don't need to create any stack, and it will be like a default by here. So on the editor utility, as you can see, we have this kind of button. It will allow us to create a window that can be docked if you want to. And I can dock it here, for example, and now I can try to edit this post. For now, I will use a simple example. I will use the vertical box. This is the vertical box. And from that case, I will use a button. I will use editor utility button, which is here. This is the button. Now I'll use text. And now, when you have this name, I will use generate AI random person. Okay, that's great. We can make it a little bit larger. So I'll just go to appearance and then I will use for size. And if I go here, as you can see, this is like our button. We can even maybe make it a little bit smaller, especially if you want to dock, but remember that we can resize it normally. Size box will not work normally here. Okay, and now when we have this kind of button, and this will be the image, I'll add it to vertical box and I'll press fill. And now, as you can see, it's filled up here. When I press is it collapsed, it shouldn't be visible. And now I would like to have this image as a variable. I will say AI random image. Okay, that's pretty great. That's pretty great. And now I would like to use some code. This is actually very awesome possibility to use code that we can find in async task download image. And on even construct, when we construct it, I can use download image. As we can see, it's already docked, but I will just like put it out and I will use, if it's editor utility widget, I will just make this naming convention and add generate random AI person. And from now, I will use this, and this is web browser. And we have a website which is this person does not exist. And if I refresh that, say, it generates a random person. I will copy that URL address and I will use this. And now, when we have a bottom here, I will just use a high random image. I will set brush. And this will be a normal thing. And upon a success, so we want to only return the image when it's successful, I will use a texture. And this is actually how we can create this kind of stuff. And now when everything is ready, I can use AI random image and switch visibility. So now it will be visible. I do not want to be interactable, so I will use not hit testable. Okay. And now if I run utility, I press run utility widget. As you can see, it generates some images. But it's just on the first construction side. And now I would like to use my bottom that we create. And why I haven't used it on the bottom? Because I do not want to change visibility all the time when I go. So I will just use my bottom, which is here. I need to use that variable, otherwise it will not be visible. I will use onClicked. And now I'll use the same, but without visibility, because we do not want to add another operation. It is just only for one check, because we do not want to see that white stuff, especially when we run utility widget. And now we can use it. And if I run utility widget now, I can press generate. As we can see, it generates random images. Awesome. And it's everything in a widget. That's pretty awesome. Now we'll dive a little bit deeper. I can use a free API. And we can write free cat API. And cat as a service, and basically this is actually the good API because it's for free, and I will show you how we can use it. So this is a random cat. We can press example, and as we can see, upon example, it will return an images, and I will use that matter as well, and I will use free cat facts API because we have as a cat fact. We use just both of these services just as an example. So the one I will use to return an image from a cat, and this is actually a tag. So we can get a random tag and see. As well, we have a possibility to overwrite an integer. So we press lengthening now, we see this fact. And maybe if you want, for example, maximum length will be 100. As you can see, this is how it look like. So this is a call, this is the request rs URL that we use, and this is the response body. That response body is in JSON. To decode that, we will need additional plugins. For now, actually, we can use this cat services because it's easy. So this is the address we can find, cats random. And if I go and, for example, duplicate this, use u generate random cat, I'll go to this kind of thing and change the name, generate random cat, and when it's loaded, now I will use this address URL. I'll just replace that. This is actually how can it be easily managed. And if I press run utility widget, I press generate random cat, as you can see, it has been generated. And even though we could like extend that code by basically using all the other services, because as you can see, it's just a get, but for example, we can use other URLs like orange cute, so we can apply and manage that URL. Or maybe you want to have this kind of URL that will say something like hello, so it will use this kind of signs, so we can generate that kind of arrow. But for example, now I would like to decode the URL address. We have many plugins, some of them are paid, some of them are free, but in this course I will use only default Unreal Engine plugins, because yeah, everything can be done just with default plugins. But how we can do it? In order to generate, we see there is like a one variable, max length, and what I'm going to do, I will duplicate that stuff again. I will call it u generate cat facts, and now how we change random cat facts, and this is the random image. I will replace it with the text. We can, I don't know if we can, probably not, because everything is marked, so I can just remove it and add a text normal here. And then the text can be just in the middle, and we can add some padding from the top in order to have some sort of the space between those. And probably I will remove this kind of things because I don't need it. Even I don't need to construct because it will not use an empty space. And now I'll use the bottom, that's true, but I will use other functionality. So in order actually to use that functionality, we'll have to use HTTP GET request. And how we can use it, because it's not actually enabled by default, and I will ask you to enable it. It is called HTTP blueprint. So we go to plugins, I'll go to HTTP blueprint. As we can see, it's experimental, but we press yes, and I'll restore the editor. And now, when everything is done, as you can see, it's already on. I will go again to generate random cat facts. This is just an image, so this is this one. And now I will reset the text. I'll go to a graph now. And in the cat facts, I will use now a new function which is called HTTP request. We have a normal functionality that can use somebody, but we just use async because we are getting some stuff. And this will be a get. We want to get information. So I'll just use this verb. And for now, I have to use some sort of the functionality to type stuff that we can parse to the max length. So as I showed you before, this is the address URL. This is how it looks like. We can even use the strings, and we used to obviously manage append strings, so we can use this kind of thing, and this will be a variable. And that length will be some new button, so we can set some settings. And for example, we will use I would say we can use editor, editable text box. So we allow player or someone, or maybe not. I will just use a horizontal box. And that horizontal box can be at the top. And I will use a slider. This is a slider. See, we can make it a little bit bigger. And I will copy that text. This is a fact text. But I will duplicate it. Copy and paste here. We do not need to use that padding. And this is our volume. And we will try to maybe manage some stuff. So the volume will be for now 50. But max length can be 1000. So like that. And maybe we can use it as like a general slider or fill up the kind of thing. So I will just use this. I'll name it length response. This is a button. I have editor utility slider. And now I'm just filling it up and run utility. And now this is HTTP GET request. Obviously we have an error, but we will use the value that is actually specified here in this slider. And from here, I will use slider length and volume. So this is the get volume. But we need integer, because if we not use integer, it will return 100.0 because it's a float. So we'll use round to integer. And now when everything is processed, we'll have to use that field, which is fact. We have two actually fields, fact and length. So fact and length, and we have to use another functionality from other plugin, because apparently we cannot just use a field. This is a result body. And so now I can use plugin that is actually turned by default. I can use get field. Where is that? This is like a JSON category and not request processing. We want to only process when it's successful. And now we return the name from that API. So the name from that API, as we can see, is a fact. Obviously, if you want to return length, we can use it as well. So I'll use length. And it doesn't know what is inside of this field, but obviously we know this is like a string. So from now, basically, what I'm going to do, I will use my fact text. I will use this. This I will just turn off because we don't want to use it. And now I will use set text and this wildcard that we can use, and we will try to process it. This is the length, but we can use obviously effect. And now when it's successful, we try to see if it can generate. So now I have a utility cut. We have a response, and that value that actually can be pressed. Probably it will be better to add some stuff because we do not see. I don't know if it's visible in the slide. Probably not. Yeah, we do not see, even if I maybe make it a little bit bigger. I will just make another text. I'll duplicate. I will go right. And I'll use a vol. And this volume will be used here. And I will use set text. And when I change this slider length on volume change, what I'm going to do, I will use, because we use a round for that length. So I'll use round, and now I'll just make it here. Okay, so now, especially if I want to, it will not show default by value. So if I run utility widget, it shows, I need to compile first. It doesn't show anything, even though we have a slider. It only shows when I press the slider. So we'll use event construct to have this kind of value by default. I will copy it over, and I'll use get length volume. So this is a volume from the slider, and get volume. Yes, this is the right way of getting a volume. It's better way even to use the function, not accessing variables. So I will just use this one as well here. And now I will run it because I don't want to use zeros. So now if I press play, not play obviously, I press run utility widget, I can set some stuff, and I will go close the plugins and we open output log. If I press get generate, as we can see, it generates all the stuff that is here, which is very awesome. And yeah, we can generate facts, we can even make it a little bit smaller, so it will try to adjust for that case. And we can even set some auto wrapping, because if you press full, we see basically it just adjusts for that case. Yeah, and as well, if you want to get length, basically we just change one field. So sometimes JSON can have like other fields, so we can just use that request body. Remember that this is a header, so the headers usually we can even use here, and this is just a structure, but it's not actually a great way and to get some information, but still this is like a possibility to get I would say headers. This is HTTPS. We can get all the headers here. So there is even a way to obtain all of these headers and try to replace some of these statistics and variables, right? So this is how we can do it. I've shown you a few examples how we can use utility widgets, how we can use HTTP GET request from the default plugin, as well how we can use just a normal and download image. So we use the URL and there is a texture, and that texture is dynamically set to our widget. Everything of this can be done in the normal widget. Remember that, because this is just for a utility, but if you want to have like random data, for example, text generated from ChatGPT or image that was generated in DALL-E and parsed to your like image in your interface, runtime in your game, everything is doable. So I highly encourage you to play with that, because it's really awesome and can extend your editor in a very nice ways.
If you're interested in mastering Unreal Engine editor extensions with C++ and blueprints, check out my course on Udemy. It covers everything from scripted asset actions to data validators and actor actions.